kid's ball game. The same rules ought to apply to everyone.
So that's how it went for Trey Gowdy grilling the AG Loretta Lynch as the investigation of the server continues for Hillary Clinton and what Gowdy calls a two-tier justice system. Congressman Gowdy with me now from the Hill. And sir, welcome back here to America's Newsroom. This is kind of how it went yesterday for several hours. Listen.
I, as Attorney General, am not able to provide any further comment on the facts or the substance of the investigation.
Do you agree with Director Comey's conclusion about that?
Again, I would have to refer you to Director Comey's statements for the basis for his recommendation. Again, I would refer you to Director Comey for any further explanation as to the basis for his recommendation.
Well, I don't know how many times it was, but it was a lot. What did you learn?
Nothing. It was a total waste of time and a total disservice to my fellow citizens. Prosecutors have a lot of power in our justice system, Bill, a lot of power. And it's not asking too much to ask prosecutors to explain their charging decisions or their decision not to charge. She could have answered every one of those questions. She just chose not to. There's no legal prohibition. There's no grand jury prohibition. There's no rule that doesn't allow her to answer the questions. She just chose not to.
Yeah, why?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
because what we asked her to do is apply the facts to the law. And it's really not that complicated. You take the facts as Director Comey gave them to us and as he found, you apply the law, which is public and everybody knows what it is, but the facts are embarrassing for her presidential candidate. So discussing the facts necessarily leads to more questions like, well, if you had all those good facts, why didn't you indict? She doesn't do well in that
So your
conversation.
suggestion in that answer is that she's protecting Hillary Clinton. True?
That is the only reasonable interpretation of what we witnessed yesterday. There's no other reason for a detached, neutral Attorney General not to say, this is the law, these are the facts, we applied them, and this is the result we got. Jim Comey did it last week. I disagree with his conclusion, but at least give the man credit for going through the analysis. She wouldn't even go through the analysis.
Now, what do you think of this airplane meeting with Bill Clinton now? Do you see it differently or not?
I just think it's terrible optics. I have no reason to impeach her when she says they discuss grandkids. That's a long talk about grandkids, 30 minutes. Golf, maybe, I get. But grandkids, that's a long time to talk about. But it looks terrible.
Well, does it give you the sense, sir, that this meeting was made public in order for her to come before your committee and sidestep any questions about the evidence?
No, sir. What it gives me is a reason to understand those people who think we have a two-tier justice system, because poor folk do not get to sit on the plane, or the spouses of poor folks do not get to sit on the plane with the Attorney General for 30 minutes. So you and I, our spouses or our relatives would not be able to sit on the plane with Loretta Lynch for 30 minutes. But if you're powerful and you have a position of influence and you have the right last name, then you can do things the rest of the world can't do. And that's why people don't have confidence in the justice system. And it is not a political issue to me. I've spent 16 years talking to people who never once wanted to discuss politics. It's facts, it's law, it's justice. And she turned all of that upside down. It was a completely unforced error. I don't know what they talked about, but the appearance is dreadful.
Two more questions quickly here. You wanted justice to look into whether or not she lied before Congress last fall. That's not going to happen, is it?
I think Chairman Goodlatte and Chairman Chaffetz both referred the matter to the FBI because they asked them to, and I think the FBI will investigate.
But they work for Loretta Lynch, don't they?
Yes, sir, they do. Yes, sir, they do.
So it's not going to happen, is it?
Well, I don't want to say Comey won't look into it. I think I can predict the outcome, but perhaps he'll surprise me.
Final question. Is this now left to voters to decide about all this?
It's always been up to voters a little bit, Bill, for this reason. You just referenced comments she made before a committee of Congress. I detailed last week a half dozen false comments she made to the public. It's not a crime to lie to the public. It's not a crime. But voters can certainly factor that in. And I'll conclude with this. I don't think voters expect us in politics to be right all the time. I think they do expect us to be honest all the time. And when you have that many demonstrably false statements that she's made to the public, yeah, I think the jury, the voters are going to factor that in.
That on July 1st, you said, I'll accept the recommendations of the FBI. Mr. Comey didn't announce his decision until July 5th, and he said that he didn't talk to you beforehand. Now, I assume it's not unusual for the Attorney General to accept the recommendations of the FBI and the career prosecutors and the team, as you've so often cited. What is unusual is to make a big, bold public announcement that you're going to do it. It's one thing to do it. I assume it happens all the time. It's another thing to announce ahead of time you're going to do it. So here's what I'm having trouble with, and I guess a lot of people are having trouble with. If you commit and announce that you will abide by the FBI's decision before they even finish their investigation, then how can you also say ultimately it was your decision?
Well, Congressman, as I've indicated, I accepted their recommendation. I had indicated.
So are you, what I want to know is, was it not your decision or was it your decision? Because it seems to me you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm the Attorney General and I decide, but yet I'm going to take their recommendations even before they make their recommendations.
I had indicated that I would be accepting their recommendation because I wanted to make it clear that any conversation that I might have had with the former president would have no impact on the team or the review or the investigation.
You ever do this before?
I have not had occasion to do that before, but I felt it was important.
So you've never announced before an investigation is done that whatever they come up with, maybe they're going to screw it up, who knows? You've never announced before that whatever they recommend, I'm going to follow. Never happened before.
It was important in this case to do so.
So this is the first time you've ever done that. Announced beforehand, I don't care what their recommendations are, I'm going to, by golly, I'm going to follow them.
I have complete faith in the judgment and the hard work of the team.
I'm not questioning whether you have faith in them. I think probably a lot of people have faith in the FBI in a lot of situations. I don't know that they agree with them here, but I think you have faith in a lot of times. What I'm questioning is why announce ahead of time when you've never done it before? Why announce ahead of time, I'm going to follow their recommendations even though I don't know what they are, and still claim you're the ultimate decider?
Well, as I indicated, I felt it was important to express my role in the investigation, to clarify my role, because I was concerned that the conversation I had with the former president would make people think that there could be some influence.
So that was the trigger?
That, in my view, was something that needed to be clarified. I felt that people needed to understand my role in this. So
you've never done this before, but when you have a conversation with the former president, the husband of the subject of an ongoing investigation, and you have that conversation before they've interviewed the subject and before they've reached their recommendations and finished their investigation, that's what triggered you to do this thing you've never done before, which is announce, I don't care what they recommend, I'm going to follow it.
My concern was that the conversation that I had with President Clinton would be seen by some as having an influence over that. I felt it was important to clarify.
Just some, General Lynch, a lot of people.
And I felt it was important to clarify that even before I had landed in Phoenix, I made that decision.
Here's what I see happening.
I felt it was important that people hear that from me.
Here's what I think is, I think your actions made it worse. I really do. I think a lot of people already think that there are two systems, as many have talked about, one for we the people, a different one, entirely different one for the politically connected. Your former Secretary of State, your former Senator, your former First Lady, your nominee for President, your husband meets with you 5 days before a decision is announced. Different standard for those facts. And you proved it. You demonstrated that it's different by your actions because you said you've never done this before, so you not only You changed your internal practices. You changed the fact that you've never announced beforehand that you're going to follow recommendations before you even have the recommendations. Your actions contributed to this belief that the system is rigged. And that, you made a bad situation worse by saying, I'm going to do whatever they recommend, even though I don't know what the recommendations are. I don't know anyone who would conduct themselves that way when they're the ultimate decider. But you said, I'm going to wait. I'm going to do whatever they said, and I'm not even going to wait to see what they're recommending. I'm going to follow it. You showed that this case was different, and the law is supposed to treat every single person the same. And your announcement, by definition, made this thing entirely different. And then, of course, what was ultimately decided made it entirely different as well.
Is it legal or illegal to share classified information with somebody who doesn't have a security clearance?
Congressman, it depends on the facts of every situation. You'd have to determine how that sharing occurred. You'd have to determine the means. You'd have to determine, the reason, the intent. Certainly, depending upon how you viewed the statute, it could go any number of ways.
So you think there is a scenario in which you could share classified information with somebody who doesn't have the requisite security clearance?
No, I would not draw that conclusion. I would say that I'm not able to answer it as a hypothetical, but that there are a number of factors that would go into the decision, and one could have any number of results.
Is it legal or illegal to provide access to somebody who doesn't have the requisite security clearance to view classified material?
To provide access?
Yeah.
Again, again, I'd need more facts on the hypothetical, but I would look at a number of things, and depending upon how you reviewed it, it could go any number of ways.
Is it legal or illegal to store, house, or retain classified information in a non-secure location?
Again, I would refer you to the statute. One could, in fact, have liability, again, depending upon the nature and facts and
Do you
circumstances.
have any examples of where it's legally acceptable to retain classified information in a non-secure location?
I don't have a hypothetical answer for that.
Is it legal or illegal to provide false testimony under oath?
There are a number of statutes that cover that, both at the federal and state level. There are a number of ways in which that could be found.
There's a difference between prosecuting something and whether it's legal or illegal. You know, these questions are pretty simple, and we got millions of people with security clearance. How are they supposed to go through the gyrations that you've laid out in order to make a simple determination?
Congressman, if we had a specific fact situation or fact pattern, that could be reviewed.
I'm just
when
asking,
it comes
is
to a
it
hypothetical situation, it would be unfair to come up with a blanket answer to someone without reviewing all the facts of their situation.
I'm asking if it's legal or illegal to share classified information with somebody who doesn't have a security clearance.
Again, I would refer you to the appropriate statutes, and I'd refer you to the facts of every situation. It would be unfair to give a blanket answer to every hypothetical.
Why aren't we telling all the federal employees and contractors who have access to classified information, those in our military, why aren't we telling them, you can't do this, it's against the law? Why can't you say that?
We give them guidance. Again, every agency does. We give them examples. We give them information as to how to make those decisions. We show them. And again, every information provides, every agency provides
why is
that,
the law not sufficient guidance? You believe, is there a flaw in the law? Or is there a suggestion on the law? I mean,
I don't have a comment on the state of the law. My answer is that in order...
Somebody asked me to consult an attorney, and you are the Attorney General. And I think you're sending a terrible message to the world, to those people who are trying to make some simple decisions. The lack of clarity that you give to this body, the lack of clarity on this issue is pretty stunning. These seem like simple issues. Let me ask you, the team that you talk about in the Secretary Clinton email scandal, outside of the FBI, who was on that team that you referred to that made the recommendation?
As I indicated before, they would be career prosecutors.
Okay, so they're prosecutors. Anybody else on the team that was a participant in the investigation?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not sure if you're referring to anybody else. Can you give me some further context for that?
I don't know, like if they go back and do security clearances, determine classification, whether it's secure or non-secure, I would think that there'd be somebody outside of the FBI that would help you make those determinations.
Well, the Department of Justice team would be Department of Justice employees.
I'm trying to ask specific to which departments within the department. I mean, Department of Justice is a large organization, right? FBI is part of that. Prosecutors are part of it. Who above and beyond prosecutors in the FBI was involved in this investigation?
As I've indicated before, the DOJ team was composed of the career lawyers and seasoned agents in there. I'm not sure if you're asking about something outside of DOJ.
I didn't know if there was another unit or other people that were part of it. That was my question. My time has expired. I wish I had about 20 more minutes. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.
General Lynch, you and I work together on a myriad of issues, and I have great respect for many parts of the work you do and the way you do it. So I'm going to take a tack that maybe is more appropriate to my own district and to the men and women there who are asking certain questions. And I'll run you through some quick questions, and it's really for them to understand. You're obviously a skilled attorney. You took an oath. You're under a penalty of perjury as you speak today. You prepared for today so that you'd be able to answer some of the critical questions, including obviously the ones you've been asked so far. Is that correct?
I try and be responsive to the committee's questions, and I appreciate the information that staffers provide about what's of interest to the committee so that we can have the information for you.
So in that preparation, and you've got my old friend Peter Kazik behind you, you prepared to answer questions more or less in about 4 ways. Yes, no, I don't know, or I can't answer, or in some cases, some combination of that. That's pretty much how you answer here, is affirmatively yes, affirmatively no, or these shades of gray in between, correct?
Congressman, I'm not going to go into the internal discussions I have
No,
with
I'm not
my
asking
staff,
for the internal, but
and
the
I would
character
not
of
characterize my responses in that way.
So, so far today, you have rarely said absolutely yes or absolutely no, correct? You've mostly talked in terms of I can't answer that, or it's not appropriate, or see the FBI director. And so in light of that, and this is really a question of what do I tell the Marines, the sailors, Army personnel in my district, the veterans, the contractors, all those who work for the government with classified information. The former Secretary of State, in an unambiguous way, said repeatedly, both under oath and to the public, time and time again, I did not send or receive any information marked classified. And you're aware of that she had definitively said this repeatedly, right?
I believe her statements are on the record, and I defer you to that.
And I have referred to that. She unambiguously said something which was not true, according to the FBI director. So when you send and receive documents that are marked classified clearly, and according to her statement, 300 people have seen her email. Some portion of those people saw the ones that said secret, top secret, confidential, whatever. None of them are charged. What do I say to the tens of thousands of people that live and work in my district, that work for the federal government, including more than 47,000 Marines? What do I say when, in fact, saying something that isn't true, handling classified information in an extremely careless way, has no criminal ramifications? What do I say to them? How do I reconcile the fact that they know that their friends and colleagues have been prosecuted or fired for doing less in the past?
Congressman, I can't speak to any cases you may be referring to involving friends or colleagues. Again, I would refer you to the description that
I appreciate
provided
that,
about
Madam General,
the
but
fact that there are
I've
no
got to
other
ask you a
cases that
question.
follow this similar fact pattern. That is what I think we focus on.
Okay, let me go through.
Every case is different.
Every case is different.
has to be handled in the same way. Every individual, whether they are former secretary,
so there will be some cases,
has to be reviewed.
Madam General, I have
with
very
the
limited
facts
time.
and the law there.
General Lynch, you keep mentioning this professional team of career professionals. Were there any political appointees on that team? Any people who, in fact, did not work for the State Department, or did not work for the U.S. Attorney's Office prior to President Obama coming into office?
Well, again, with respect to the team, typically we don't go into the composition of it. It was led by our National Security Division, and everyone on the team was a career individual.
Again, I'll ask the question with specificity. I'm not asking for names. Was there at least one person who was politically appointed that was on that team?
The investigative team was composed of career prosecutors and seasoned agents.
The question is, was there at least one that did not work a career, that was in fact an appointee, either confirmed or unconfirmed?
Congressman, I've replied to you as to the composition of the team, that all of them.
So your answer is no, there were no political appointees?
All of them were career lawyers as well as seasoned investigators.
Okay. I'll take that as a no, because that's the only way I can interpret what you keep repeating. So, last but not least, the American people are told that these documents were not a crime to carelessly deal with. Should I find a way to make sure that those thousands of documents are made public so the American people can evaluate just how insignificant they are, or how President Obama said there's classified and then there's classified? Are these documents that could be easily made available to the public, or are they too sensitive to be made to the public today?
Congressman, you may take the appropriate steps in terms of reviewing anything, and you may make requests for that, and we'll work to accommodate you with respect to that. I don't have an answer for you beyond that. In
So
terms
you
of
couldn't today,
documents in
and you
this
today,
case.
you could not characterize whether any or all of those documents would have to be retained privately because they're too sensitive to be made public.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The witness will be permitted to answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the handling of any of the documents or emails in this matter, because they involve another agency, we would have to work with the other agency. We always work with the agency that is termed the owner of information. So on behalf of the Department of Justice, I would not be able to give you an answer at this time as to those documents because it would involve other agencies.
Before being confirmed as Attorney General in May of last year, you were first nominated by President Obama to serve as the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, and you were originally appointed to the U.S. Attorney post in 1999 by former President Bill Clinton. The existence of Secretary Clinton's private email server was first brought to light in March of last year, 1 month before your confirmation as Attorney General. A few months after your confirmation, the Inspectors General of State and National Intelligence requested the Department of Justice investigate whether classified information was stored on her private email servers. The FBI then opened an investigation into the matter. Given that she was a political appointee of your current boss, and more importantly, the wife of your previous boss, why did you not see fit to recuse yourself from the investigation? Wouldn't recusal or appointment of a special prosecutor have removed any appearance of impropriety given your service during Bill Clinton's presidency?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. As I've said on several occasions before, when the referral came into the Department of Justice, it was received and referred to experienced, dedicated career agents and prosecutors who handle matters of this type every day with independence, with efficiency, with thoroughness, and the matter was handled like any other matter. It was reviewed through the chain by those independent career agents and prosecutors. And in considering the matter, there was no connection, there was no need for a recusal or an independent prosecutor.
Well,
and as I indicated before, I'm incredibly proud of the dedicated work that they did over the past year.
Well, let me follow up on that then. 2 weeks ago, roughly a year into the FBI's investigation and a mere week before Director Comey's announcement, you met privately with your former boss, former President Bill Clinton, on your plane at the Phoenix airport. Why was this meeting, particularly in light of your previous appointment by President Clinton, not grounds for recusing yourself?
With respect to my conversation that I had with former President Clinton in Phoenix, it was a conversation that was held on the airplane, on the tarmac. The former president indicated he wanted to say hello, and I agreed to say hello. And we had a social conversation. Nothing of any relationship to the email investigation was discussed, nor were any specific cases or matters before the Department of Justice discussed.
Republican Congressman Darrell Issa, who questioned the Attorney General himself today. Good afternoon to you, Congressman. We saw some frustrated colleagues of yours really fighting to get some answers from the Attorney General. What was your question to her today?
My question was, what did the 47,000 Marines of Camp Pendleton, the contractors for the Navy, many of our people dealing with classified information throughout San Diego, we're one of the great defense cities, what do they take from the fact that thousands of documents, hundreds of them, 100 or more, marked classified or secret or top secret, were pushed back and forth? How do they interpret the ability to handle documents now? Are there new rules? That was one question. The other question
and what was it? But by the way, Congressman, what was her answer to that?
Well, you know, Sandra, she had a very interesting answer. She says everything's fact specific. Every case is different. Again, this is the only case this will ever look like this, where this kind of malice and forethought, planning to circumvent the law, leading to these documents being wrongfully sent over lots of unclassified networks, Hillary's to other people's and back. That will be a question of, will it ever happen again? And I hope not. I believe not. I think this was a political decision. The other part was much more troubling. I asked a number of times the Attorney General, who I generally work with well and respect, I asked her if there were any political appointees on this group that made the decision, And she misled the American people in how she answered. Yes, there were political appointees. We verified it. But she characterized that everybody was a career professional. That wasn't the question. The question is, were people appointed by the president and others there that serve at the pleasure, political pressure possible of President Obama? And the answer was yes, but that's not what she said.
Yeah, and her answer specifically there, she said all of them were career lawyers, seasoned investigators. Congressman, about that private meeting aboard her plane with the former President Bill Clinton during this ongoing investigation, this was obviously a hot topic. There were some heated moments there today. What did you make of her response to that? She insisted the discussion was social, not about the investigation. Did she go much further than that?
No, she didn't. And, you know, if it was social and there were half a dozen U.S. Marshals and Secret Service in the room listening to it, it would be more believable than when it was a meeting in which apparently there were just the two of them behind closed doors. I might point something out that has nothing to do with today, but has everything to do with tomorrow. There's an ongoing investigation of the Clinton Foundation and of the cash that flowed in from sources in Russia and around the world. That ongoing investigation includes the President of the United States and how he would essentially recruit this money, and Hillary Clinton would do things that were beneficial to these companies, these countries in some case. That is still ongoing, and so that may be as troubling as why was he on the airplane when in fact he may have been guilty of wrongdoing himself in another investigation going on that the FBI director has not been willing to talk about.
Your colleague, Congressman Goodlatte, walked away saying he was left with more questions than he was answers after today. Is there anything that did come out of this that will help you further in your inquiry over what exactly happened with that private server?
I believe that what we got today was an opportunity for the American people to understand that answers aren't coming from this administration, and they're not taking responsibility for the double standard. You know, there's an election coming. The American people will have to decide whether or not they can trust Hillary Clinton with the level of responsibility that includes lives of men and women all over the world. So that's probably the only place you're going to get justice. Or are you going to get a third Obama term that includes, and you saw this asked near the end of the hearing, is Loretta Lynch willing to serve another term under Hillary Clinton? And she would not say no.
All right. Well, it was interesting. Got heated at times, and certainly appreciate your questions there, sir. Congressman Darrell Issa, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Republican House members are accusing President Obama's Attorney General of making a bad situation worse in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Loretta Lynch was grilled today by a House committee for accepting a recommendation against charges from the head of the FBI. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herod shows us what happened from Capitol Hill.
Your refusal to answer questions regarding one of the most important investigations of someone who seeks to serve in the highest office in this land is an abdication of your responsibility.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch was publicly rebuked by Republicans during the 4-hour hearing. The lawmakers were clearly irked by her non-responsive answers to direct questions about her decision to accept the FBI's recommendation against criminal charges for Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information.
Again, I refer you to Director Comey's discussion for that.
The nation's top law enforcement officer also refused to discuss the laws involved.
The information the team provides to me on this or any other case has to be given in a zone of confidentiality.
Lynch declined to say whether she reviewed Clinton's FBI interview before closing the case.
I had determined that I would accept the recommendation of the team.
I asked my staff to count the number of times today you would say I can't answer that question or refuse to give an appropriate response. It's happened 74 times so far.
She argued her tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton was not cause for a special prosecutor.
There was nothing about any investigations or any specific cases or any of the other matters.
Have you had any conversation with either individual about your possibly serving in a Hillary Clinton administration?
No, I've had no conversations.
You can't say, I'm the Attorney General and I decide, but yet I'm going to take their recommendations even before they make their recommendations.
I wanted to make it clear that any conversation that I might have had with the former president would have no impact on the team.
I think your actions made it worse. I really do. I think a lot of people already think that there are two systems, as many have talked about, one for we the people, a different one, entirely different one for the politically connected.
While Republicans grew frustrated, Democrats focused on gun violence.
It's a reckless legislative joyride designed to crash and burn.
Apparently, Secretary Hillary Clinton's email takes precedence over gun violence.
The Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, the nation's top intelligence officer, has sent a letter to the House Speaker confirming that the nominee for each party automatically qualifies for classified briefings and that past bad acts such as the mishandling of classified